Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. So back by popular demand, we are on the iPad and we are going to recreate the Stranger Things logo. And it's going to be really fun. So I'm super excited about this one. We're going to go through a bunch of really simple techniques for getting this set up. And although I would highly recommend never creating a logo in Procreate because you can only export at 132 ppi, which is not enough for a logo, and there's no vector output, I would not recommend ever making a logo in Procreate, but we're going to learn a lot of things about Procreate by recreating this. So there is a purpose to it. Just wanted to preface that by saying don't make logos in Procreate, but definitely use the techniques that we're going to go over in this tutorial. Okay, so we're going to make this and it's going to be awesome. So the first thing we need to do is grab a source image, which is what I have right here. And all I did was Google Stranger Things logo, and then I saw this one, so I tapped on it, and then I took a screenshot, which you can do by hitting the home button and your little top lock button at the same time, and it'll make a big flash, and then you got a screenshot. And that's all we need to get started. I'm on a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I have my Apple Pencil, and we're using the Procreate app for this video. So I'm going to hop into Procreate. I have a new document already. My document, if you come to the gallery, I just made my document over here the screen size. So that's as far as I've come so far. So we're going to come over here to new layers, and we're going to be on layer 1, and we need to bring in that image so then we can kind of draw over it so we can recreate it. So in order to bring the image in, you're just going to hit this little wrench up here, and you're going to hit insert right there, import image, and then we're going to hit photos, and that screenshot we took is going to be saved in our camera roll. So we're going to go into our camera roll, and there's our screenshot, and it's just going to drop right in, and from here you can make it bigger if you need to, or smaller. I'm going to make it nice and big so you can see everything I'm doing. Okay, so now that we have this, we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to grab kind of a middle ground color. So whenever I start a new project on the iPad, I like creating a new color palette, which down here, if you just hit this little icon, you can hit plus and it'll create a new color palette. And I'm just going to name this Stranger Things. So we're good to go. Okay, so we've got our color palette right here. So the first thing we're going to do is grab kind of a medium red. We don't want it to be one of these highlight reds because we're going to throw in highlights later on. So in order to grab a color from your source image, you're just going to hit this little icon right here between, this is your size and this is your opacity slider. So you're just going to hold down this little icon right in the middle and then just hover over, and you can see I can kind of grab whatever color. So I'm going to grab a medium shade. These are kind of dull. Let's grab like right here. And then you can whoops, I didn't grab it completely. This can be kind of sensitive. And actually don't be afraid to like zoom in here if you can't get close enough. So I'm going to grab this color. You can see it pulled it right there, and as soon as it pulls it, I'm going to save it down here so I can always reference it later if I need to. So all I have to do is tap down here in your color palette. Okay, so now we need to grab a brush, and what we need is a mono weight brush. You can see there's no variation in size when we're using pressure, so we need to make sure we get that nice, clean monoline stroke wherever we're drawing. So how I do it is I edit a pre-existing brush to make things really easy, and I go into inking right here. You can see I've got this one. Let me delete that, and we'll create a new one. Okay, so I use a variation of the Studio Pen. So if you tap on Studio Pen, this comes in every version of Procreate, so you will definitely have it in there. And all you do is slide it over and choose Duplicate. And then I'm going to name this right away. So you just tap on it and then tap on the name, and I'm going to call this Stranger Things, just so I can keep track of everything. And then we need to adjust this. You can see right now we've got a taper on both ends, and we don't want to have a taper on either end. So I'm just going to bring my size limit right here all the way. Actually, I'm in general right here. I'm going to bring minimum all the way down. I'm going to bring maximum all the way up. And I'm going to bring up my opacity limits right here all the way. Okay, so that's under general. And then under pencil, we don't want any change when you're using pressure. So where it says pressure size, we're going to reduce this down to 0. And now you can see we still have that taper that we need to get rid of. You can get to that by coming over here to stroke. Streamline is pretty cool. It makes it so things snap into place better. So I would recommend bringing this up kind of far. You'll notice later on it kind of acts magnetic. So definitely raise that one up. So for stroke, I'm going to bring the start and the end all the way down to none. So now you can see we've got this nice, clean monoline stroke. So we are good to go right here. Okay, so I'm going to close this up, and now I'm going to reduce my size. I want to make sure my opacity is all the way up. This is my opacity down here. I'm going to reduce this way down because we're going to test actually and just see what the comparison is. And that's actually looking pretty good. I think I'm going to make it a little thicker so maybe you can see it a little bit better. To undo anything, you just hit 2 fingers and tap, and it'll undo. And if you want to redo, you use 3 fingers and tap, and it'll bring it back. So that's a handy little shortcut. So I'm going to just make sure that's a pretty good size. I want to keep it just larger than I normally would so you can see it really well. All right, that looks good. Okay, we're just gonna get into it. So now I need a new layer because I don't wanna draw on my source image layer. So I'm gonna hit this little plus icon, and I've got a brand new layer now. And now we're just gonna draw on top of it. And if you can't see what you're doing very well, you can reduce the opacity of this source image, which I'm gonna do just so we can see things really well. So all you have to do is hit this little icon, this little magic wand up here, and then tap layer opacity, and then just click on this blue line and kind of drag it back. And that'll reduce how opaque it is. All right, so we should be able to see everything now. If I tap on my second layer and I draw on top, we can see it pretty well. Okay, so we're just gonna come in here and we'll do a simple thing first, and then we'll do this really long line. So I'm going to show you how to draw a perfectly straight line in here, which we're going to be using a lot of. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start at your starting point. Let me zoom in here really close. So I'm going to start here, and then I'm just going to draw a line. It doesn't matter how straight it is, but when I get to the end, I'm just going to hold it. And now you can see when I drag the line out, it's perfectly straight, and then I can release it where I need it. So I'm going to do the same thing. Start on your starting point, draw, doesn't matter how wavy it is, end where you need it to end, and then just hold for a second and it'll snap right into place. And then I'm just going to freehand these ends right here and close them up. Okay, so that is our first little bar. We're getting there. So if I can check to see my progress at any point in time by just tapping this little icon right here. And so this is your visibility icon. So we can see our progress as we go along. So I'll do this one more time, and then I'm going to speed up the video so you don't have to watch me do all of this. So once again, you're going to start. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer. I'm going to start at the starting point, draw it out, hold it, wait until it snaps, do the same thing again, hold it. And if you're still holding it, you can still move it. So if it's not ending where you want it to, you still have the opportunity to fix it, which is really awesome. Okay, so I'm going to do this super long one too. That one's kind of scary. You just got to do the best you can. So let's see. And hold it. That actually worked pretty well. Hopefully I'll get as lucky this time. You can see how I'm not really caring how off I am, and then there we go. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And I just use 2 fingers when I'm pushing to make sure that it's going all the way that I need it to. Okay, so for these letters, all I'm going to do is come through here, and wherever there's a straight line, like right here, I'm just going to draw the straight lines in. So let's see, let that snap. And then for like right here, I'll draw this, wait for it to snap. Same thing here. So I'll come through all the letters, and I'm only doing the straight areas. Like right here, you can see it kind of transitions into the serif, so I'm excluding this little, this curve right here, because I'll draw that freehand, but I will draw in these super straight lines and make sure I get all of these in here. So I'm going to speed up the video and I'm going to get through this whole thing. And remember, at any point in time, if you want to see how you're doing or if you missed any lines, all you have to do is come back to your layers and turn off your base layer, and you can kind of see how things are working out. So I'm going to make sure I'm always on my drawing layer. I'm going to come back in and I will be back. So now that I've got all of my lines pretty much in, it's starting to come together. You can see it's kind of a skeleton right now, but it's getting there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to fill in the blanks. So I'm going to freehand all of my curves now. So I'm going to speed up the video and I will be back when that is finished. So one thing I want to mention is this part can be a lot more difficult if I didn't have my streamline option all the way up. I'm actually going to raise it even more. So the streamline allows your curves to be less shaky. You can see it kind of magnetizes into place. Whereas before, if I don't, let me show you, here's before with streamline. Or I guess that's after with streamline. But if I don't have streamline on, this is what it looks like. You can see every little shaky move, and that's no good when you're drawing something like this. So if I have streamline all the way up, it's gonna kind of snap into place when I draw it. So that's why I'm able to get these really nice curves. So that takes a lot of the guesswork and kind of jitters out of your line work. So make sure it's under stroke with your brush settings, and just make sure streamline is all the way maxed out. Okay, I'm just taking one last peek at everything, and that's looking really good. Looks like the logo. If you see any of these, like, you probably saw in the time lapse, if you get a dot here or there from like your hand, just picking up some rogue movement, all you have to do is hit the little eraser and then just erase it away. So don't worry about little blips in the artwork. Okay. So we've got our lettering all done and it's looking awesome. So now we just need to apply the cool effects to it. So I'm going to up this all the way. So I'm just going to hit this magic wand again, layer opacity, and just slide it all the way back up. Okay, so if I turn off my drawing layer and we look at this, you can see that we've got some highlights on our letters, like the G and the A over here, and it's also a little bit fuzzy, like it's glowing a little bit, so we need to simulate that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to simulate that blurriness first, and then we're going to add in the highlights on the different letters. Okay, so for the blurriness, we're going to take our drawing layer right here, we turn it on, and we're just, actually I'm going to make a black layer here too so we can separate the two and we can refer and see how close we are. So click on or tap, I guess, tap on your original layer, hit the plus, and then we're going to come over here, and we've already saved our red color, so we need a black. You can pull it from the background, or if you come down here where the black is and just double tap, it'll hop right to pure black, and then you can add that to your palette down here too. And now that you have black up here, all you have to do is tap right on the picture and hit fill, and there we go. We've got all black there. So we can go back and forth to compare our final artwork with the original. Okay, so what we're going to do is come up to our drawing layer, and you're just going to slide it over and choose duplicate. So this bottom one right here, we need to make blurry because it's underneath the main artwork. So with this one selected, the one right above our black layer, we're going to come over here and we're going to tap on the magic wand once again and hit Gaussian blur. And now, in order to add the Gaussian blur, we're just going to tap up here and start sliding, and it'll start getting blurrier. But because our stroke's so thin, it's going to be kind of hard to see. So I'm just going to up this, and I'm going to choose about, I don't know, let's do 15% and see. Okay. So if I turn this off, you can see what it looks like with the blur and without. So there is subtle difference right here. If we want it to be even stronger, we can duplicate our blur. So I'm actually going to label, rename. I'm going to label this layer blur so we keep things straight. Okay, so we're going to duplicate our blur layer. So just slide it over and hit duplicate, and that'll make a stronger blur. And we can actually increase the size of this even more by coming over to our magic wand, Gaussian blur, and just slide it up slightly. Okay. All right, that's looking really good. So we got our blur going on, and now we can add in those highlights. So if I turn off all of my drawing layers, we can come in and we can see we've got parts of the S. The T is pretty even. We're focusing on the brightest areas because everything else will kind of fall back once we focus on those areas. So I'm looking at the G. So I'm kind of making a mental note, and I'm going to come up here. I'm going to keep my blur layer off just for now, and I'm just going to create a new layer. So all of these are turned off right now. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to choose my red, but I'm going to come over here and make it brighter, more vibrant, like right there. I'm going to save that color. And then I'm going to choose my airbrush. So if I come over here to airbrush, and I'm going to choose my soft airbrush, and I'm going to keep it kind of on the lower side. Let's see what that looks like. That's looking pretty good. Actually, I'm going to make it a little bit larger. Okay. So I'm on my original right now, my source image, so I'm going to hit all the right spots. So I'm really, on this layer, I'm just going to draw over the highlight areas. So I'm on my brand new layer right now. So I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to do a soft brush up here. In any place where it's really bright, you're going to go a little harder with your pressure so it really stands out. But the little areas, you can just do a soft little stroke. So I'm going to go through here and I'll speed up the video and I'll be right back. Okay, we've got all of our highlights on now, and if I put on my black layer again, and I put on all my drawing layers, and then I come over here to my brand new, let me label this, highlights, just to keep things straight. And we're just going to tap on this little N icon right here, and this is our blend mode, so we're going to choose overlay. So come over here to contrast and then hit overlay, and that'll kind of snap it on top of our letters. So you can also play around with some of the other ones and seeing, actually hard light's looking pretty good too. I like overlay so far. So you can kind of go through them and see what they all look like and see what might be right for whatever you're working on. So let's see, screen is actually looking really nice. I like the look of that quite a bit. I think I'm going to keep it set to screen because I like the glow of that a lot, but it seems a little intense in some areas, so I'm going to lower the opacity on it. So with your highlights layer selected, just come over here, choose layer opacity, and we're just going to drag it down just slightly. In any areas that you feel are too strong, like I think I did this S a little too strong in the corner, so I can come in here with my eraser and I'm going to choose my airbrush and soft brush for my eraser. That way it's consistent with the brush that I use. Let me reduce the size a little. So that'll be a little bit better. Okay, so that's looking really good, and as you probably noticed before on our original, if I turn all these off, we've got some dark areas too, so we can throw those in. They're mostly right on, they're mostly right on the side and then on the R. So I'm just gonna grab my black and I'm gonna grab my airbrush once again. I'm gonna use my soft brush this time, and I'm gonna create a new layer all the way on top, and I'm just gonna very softly color over these areas. So I'm going to turn all of this back on, and that looks pretty good. Maybe even a little bit more. Let me make sure it's still on the right layer. And you can reduce the opacity too, so there's more of a transition where you're adding it. And you can even change the blend mode of this one to the darken. Multiply is really good. I think I'm going to stick with multiply. And let's zoom out. And I think I need a greater blur. If I compare it to the original, seems like the letters have a little bit more blur on them. So I think I'm going to come in here to my blur layer. I'm going to duplicate it one more time and then come over here and increase my Gaussian blur, so it feels like it's glowing a little bit more. And there we go. It's looking pretty good. So that's how to create the Stranger Things logo, or recreate it, on an iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil and the Procreate app. So if you're looking to learn more with iPad lettering, definitely head on over to my blog, every-tuesday.com, and be sure to click the link in the video description for this week's blog post. I've got a lot more information over there with iPad lettering. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe. I release a new design tutorial every single Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.